Hello, I'm Bill Campbell. I'm here today with President Steve Vaughn and the president of our SOAR chapter, Wilbur Wilson. I'm a divisional chairman, and I've been here for about 15 years. I'm trying to capture some of the history of our local. We have some great accomplishments we've made over the years. The one we're going to be looking at today is the rebuilding of the local after the War of '94. Both of these two gentlemen were a big part of that. And President Vaughn, can you give me some background on the union, the strike, the merge, and most importantly, the unconditional offer to return to work?
Sure. Well, the local started in 1945. This plant was built under the guidance of Harvey Firestone for the war effort. And by the time it was finished, World War II was over, and Harvey got around to buying the plant about 1948, but we didn't wait for that. We waited in 1945, we organized it. And it didn't take long to organize it. They did a good job with that. And we had a lot of good people here. Right after the war, a lot of folks came back from fighting and covering their brothers' backs and looking out after each other was just something they'd learned, and that was just a way of life for them. They were strong union people, and it stayed that way. I mean, this local had a history of a super strong membership out there. We were part of a lot of the actions that happened back in the early days of organizing, you know, the sit-down strikes of Wildcats. I mean, if it was happening in Des Moines, it was happening at the Firestone plant. They were headlines, seemed like weekly out here, and we were proud of that. My dad was a part of that. He hired in 1953. My brother Brad hired in 1962. They were a big part of that. Both of them, and including Wilbur, were part of that strike of 1976, 6 months long, that got us cold. And the biggest thing through those years was the fact that we had a strong membership. I hired in 1987. I've been here 30 years now. When I hired in, the year after I hired in, we had a short strike, like a week long, 2 weeks long, something like that. It was nothing really. In fact, it was right after the Japanese had acquired Firestone. But we were powerful. We had a lot of folks out here that were, you know, tough. I mean, that's there was no other way to say it. They were tough. And so we had a lot of history of that. Going into the 1994, though, it was obvious that Bridgestone was coming after us. They were banging the war drums a year ahead of that deal, and we knew we were going to have a hell of a fight on our hands, and we did. We walked out of here on July 12th, 1994, and we like to call them the Goon Squad. We're out there at the gate, dressed in black. Had Jones Day hired to break the union, but we were strong, and we walked out at noon on that day. I was a part of that deal, and I never expected it to last as long as it did, but it got ugly. And it was a lengthy strike, no doubt about that. Rubber workers at that time, the membership was down, and it didn't take long for all us folks to be on drawn strike pay to put a hurt on them. Luckily, the steel workers really saved us. There's no other way to put that. I was proud to be a rubber worker, and I'm proud to be a steel worker, and we owe everything to the steel workers for that merger. It was a big deal. It was an ugly strike. There's no other way to put it. We had 386 of our folks cross the picket line in front of us. Watching them go in and out every day, it was not easy. Through Christmas time, it was not easy. The company hired 1,540 some odd replacement workers. And of course, they were quitting and hiring, so they're not all 1,500 in there, but there was a huge chunk of them in there. We had a bunch of including my brother, retire en masse. We probably had 200 retirements during the strike or right before the strike, mainly during the strike. And so what really happened, we made an unconditional offer to return to work on May 22nd, 1995, and we trickled back in. I was out another year. I didn't get back in until around July 4th of '96. But when we went back in there, we were really the minority. I guess there's no other way to put that. The folks that had been on strike and stayed on strike were the minority. And we were in big trouble. There's no doubt about that. We didn't have the power we once had. We were on fast track to desert, to not have a union that we took pride in for all those decades and fought so hard for. it was just almost hopeless at times, but we all knew we had to do something. I was only been in there 7 years at that time. When I came back, I'd been there 9 years. And we owe everything to the folks that had the foresight, for no other way to put that, to understand that we've got to, no matter what, somehow rebuild this local. And one of the people most instrumental about doing that was Wilbur here. We owe a lot to him and some of the other folks, but he's got quite the story to tell on that deal. We owe everything to them that we're even still around today. So we're very proud of what we got, what we've had, but it was not without a huge fight and really some tough times. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I mean,
Wow, that's
lucky we're here.
That's a good history that you provided for us and a nice preface. Wilbur, what was your part in bringing the membership back together?
My part, I worked as in the hall here after a while as, I guess you call it on the corporate campaign, where I sent people out to mess with the company. And after the return to work offer, I didn't get called back for it was August of 1996. And so my job was to mess with the company. And then after I got back to work, and I think it was in January of 1997, we finally got a contract. And I'd been back to work 6 months. And we separated ourselves out with these t-shirts. The guys that stayed out on strike wore these bumblebee shirts. And I realized this is not very good shape. It's got a lot of road miles on it. So we could tell each other apart, who's who, your buddy from the past. I hated them guys. I mean, I literally hated them guys. And I guess my part in this whole deal was eventually we had held meetings about how to bring them in, and I made a motion to charge them all $1,000 initiation fee and pay their back dues. And then one night, I'm watching PBS or something. It's a show about Cesar Chavez. It's on at 2:30 in the morning. And the guys, they're on strike. It's the Let Us Picker strike. And instead of doing what we did, standing out there on the gate, calling them names in the plant, or wearing these shirts, he stood on the picket line and said, "Come join us, brother." And I thought to myself, my God, that is brilliant. That is brilliant. I wonder if we could do that. Take and turn the company's weapon, which is what the company did, was use our members and these replacement workers as weapons against us. Take that weapon and turn it on the company. Say, brother, come join us, or sister, come join us. So that is basically how I come to the, I don't know if you want to call it an epiphany, but.
So was this popular with some of your brothers and sisters?
Not really, no. There was a lot of them that were, there was talk about it, Emil Ramirez, who is our district director in District 11 right now, was junior staff rep at the time. And they stuck him here to watch us, and he'd been in my ear a few times about, eventually you're gonna have to let him back in the union. And I think my answer to that was, not while I'm alive or something like that, but I saw that show on PBS and I realized, just, we gotta do this. But we had some guys that were for it, some guys that were against it. And you gotta remember, there's only a couple hundred of us.
Right, right. So what kind of things did they say to you? Your brothers and sisters that stayed out with you?
Well, when I made the motion to let them into the union, one of my best friends called me a scab lover. And there was a lot of screaming and hollering at that meeting. And the union president, I'm not gonna banner names around, the union president at the time, he didn't follow decorum. He just let people pick me apart. I finally withdrew my, I don't know what you call it.
Motion.
Oh, yeah, I withdrew my motion. And
So,
then went back to plan.
so what did you do, and did you just give up?
Oh, hell no. In the meantime, I think I asked people how to do this, how to rebuild the local. And I had people high up in the steelworkers, educational, people that did the educating, people that were right under the district director tell me, to hell with them, they don't deserve to be in our union. But I was on the executive board, and it's my name on them checks. And I see what the dues coming in from 290, 300 people is, and we're representing 12, 1,300. And believe you me, them replacement workers, when they got fired or got in trouble, they were coming here. And we're obligated by law to represent them. So money's going out, there's no money coming in, and it'd be just so easy for one guy to pass around a petition, a decert petition, and all the hard work from the past, the guys that we rode here on their backs, all their hard work would be gone in a vote. And I wasn't gonna let that happen.
Wow, that's truly inspiring. So you started out asking people to sign cards? Or-
No.
No?
I started out to stack the next union meeting.
Oh, because you needed to pass another.
I needed to pass it,
Okay.
yeah, I can't sign no cards unless it's okay with the membership, because we already had a deal not to let them back in. We'd already gone through that months before. And so I needed to stack the union meeting, and myself and the cameraman, George Cox, and others went around and convinced people of like-mindedness to show up at the hall. And at that time, we were having 4 meetings a month, because we had 4 shifts. So we had 4 union meetings, and I could only attend 3 out of the 4, because I'd be working the next one. And, the place was full. I made the motion, somebody seconded it. The president was a little quieter this time.
What was that motion again? Was it not just for the replacements, but everybody?
No, my motion was to allow everybody back in the union, not just the replacement workers, but the guys that we were calling super scabs at the time that were members and crossed the picket line. And my motion was to allow everybody back in the union with no penalty and rebuild the damn union. I mean, let's face it, we're not gonna make it with 2,000, or 200, or 1,200 people here and 250, 300 members. It's not gonna happen.
Wow. So, did it pass
Yeah, it passed.
barely, or?
No, actually, I think it was people showed up at all 4 meetings and it overwhelmingly passed.
Wow, well, that's very impressive. So did everybody just jump right on board, or was it a battle to start off with? Did it start slow? What was it like? Once you got that motion passed and you started getting people to sign cards, or trying to get people to sign cards, what was that path to get to the,
At first, I was overwhelmed. There were guys turning in cards every day. I thought we'd get half, And in just a few months, we probably had 2/3 of the people that had, we had nearly everybody that had been a member and crossed the picket line. And then we probably had half of the people that were replacement workers signed cards within the first month or 2.
When I first came over here in 2000 as division chairman, the non-member list was about 120 people total. They made a lot of headway in the 3 years since that went down to 2,000, signing people up. It was an amazing amount of people to join.
that is really amazing. So once it started, it just grew like wildfire, huh?
Yeah.
So, do you have any idea on what the percentage was when you retired?
Well, that was in 2005. I really don't know. I was kind of ostracized from the local for a short time, so I really didn't pay attention.
But it was well under the.
I was still
700.
signing people up.
Still signing people up till the
Yeah.
day you retired. Wow, that's very impressive. So, you spoke a little bit about when you come over here in 2000, there was 100 people or so on the list. What about when you was elected? When were you elected president, and about what was it at that time?
In 2012 is when I first elected. It was probably mid 90% actually. Right now we're at 99%. One thing Wilbur didn't say, and I really need to give you some accolades here, is that, you know how union politics goes, and we've had presidents in the past that weren't always the most popular people with everybody, and there's always been that, friction. And regardless of that friction, Wilbur never slowed down. He was the guy that did the orientations. Whenever we had a group come in to be hired, he was the guy there signing them up. And
Dave Garland.
and Dave Garland. And he's always been on me. I put a newsletter out talking about, we're not always going to be extending the olive branch out to them. At some point in time, we're going to have to call them for what they are. And he's been in my butt about it forever, saying they're potential members, Vonk. You got to remember, they're potential members. They're not this. And I think even here in the last month, I got the same speech and stuff. So he's always been on me. And I've always been amazed at people that I didn't think were reachable. I've seen him in action going up and saying, hey, such and such, when are you going to do this, And the only way we ever got him is to treat him like you want to be treated. Treat him like a member, And so many folks that aren't right to work don't understand that, because they have to be members to be, working at the factory. That's the way we got him. That's the way he showed me and showed everybody how to get them. You go out and treat them like decent people. Hey, and sure, they might have made a mistake, but since then, not the fact that we're just at 99% membership, we've had replacement workers and people from those hard times on our executive board and chairs of our committees, and are doing wonderful jobs. Wonderful jobs. We have 99% because they want to be members. They don't have to be members. And that's because of a lot of the hard work he's done and some other people from the past. But I tell you what, like I said earlier, I love the rubber workers. I absolutely love the steel workers, but we were this close to not even being a member or have a union shop. And who knows what they'd ram down our throat. We wouldn't be here right now. So, we went through some wild, crazy times, but it was tough to swallow. I'm telling you, even though I agreed with him, it was still tough to swallow until you made amends with maybe that person that you were good friends with that crossed, or that person. And eventually, everything's patched up. It is. We don't even look at that nowadays. We don't care. It's not even factored into whether or not you try to, everybody's the same. They get the same representation, and we treat everybody just like I want to be treated. That's how you get them. And that's how we did it through history there, and we've been very successful. 99%, we've just got a handful, and we're slowly getting those. Our goal is to be 100%, and we can do that. We can do that. But
So you're not done?
that will never be done, absolutely not. We just had a orientation here Tuesday, and we got all of them signed up.
That's really awesome. I know this story is truly inspiring for me, and I'm truly grateful to everyone involved for all the sacrifices, determination, and dedication that it took to rebuild this local. I know it wasn't easy and it didn't happen overnight, but thanks to your hard work and determination, both of you and some of the others that you mentioned, plus all the others more that did things behind the scenes, because there was a lot that just,
Oh, yeah.
they may not have been involved, they may not have been signing cards, but they
I
looked
may not
like,
even remember their names.
Yeah.
they just might look to the guy next to them and say, hey, watch your back, somebody's over there peeking at you from around the corner trying to get you hemmed up and something.
No,
So
I know.
that all means a lot, so.
You talk to some people on the outside still, and you run into them at conventions, whatever, that'll tell you, I couldn't have done that. You know what? They could have. They just didn't have to at the time. When you have to, and you realize that your livelihood and your union you love so much at stake, you do what you have to do, and that's what we did here.
So, is there any advice either one of you could give to other locals that may come into a similar situation, or those in other states that may be affected by right to freeload legislation, to prepare for any of that may come down the pipe?
Excuse me. Well, I've always thought, Billy, that I'd rather have 60%, 70%, 75% membership of people that want to be members than 100% that are forced to be members. Myself, I don't give a shit about right to work. I care about the members. The money we spend here in this hall, it's not money. That's people across the street sweat. That's their aches and pains when they get up in the morning. And I'd rather spend that money wisely. I'd rather spend that money saving even somebody that's not a member. I want to save their job. I want to make sure they're safe on the job every day. Because you know what? The next time it could be you. The next time it could be your best friend. And you want to represent these people with the best you have. You want to give them your best. You may feel things in your heart. Let it go. Because it's just eating you up. In order to be a successful union, you've got to be inclusive, caring, and smart.
Wow.
I got nothing to add to that. Can't be said any
Well,
better than that.
that would be pretty tough to add to that. Well, I want to thank both of you again, Brother Wilbur and Brother
Billy.
Paul.
Thanks for everything you do.
Brother.
Thank you very much.